So I come from a refugee family where they're immigrants from the Vietnam War, and so we grew up pretty, I wouldn't say we were impoverished, but we weren't doing, financially, we weren't the best. My parents were still learning what it's like to live in the United States, but they knew that I would learn English, so they didn't teach me English. Vietnamese is the only language at home. But growing up, it was, because of that, the world was all out there, and this was family, and that was really emphasized. And so we had family dinners every day. We would pray together, just, an Our Father, 3 Hail Marys at the end of each day. And I was kind of embarrassed of it growing up, because even when I had friends over, my dad would be like, well, it's time to pray. I'd be like, well, Dad, I've got friends. He'd be like, well, you can invite them to come pray with us, or just leave them for 5 minutes. But it wasn't anything long, but the point is, it was this rhythm, and that faith was just part of the family life. My parents, they're not overly religious, like they're just normal people. They argue, they have fun, they tease each other, but they also pray together. And that was a great foundation for me growing up. I think the first whiff I got of a vocation was in high school. It was because I had this reversion to the faith. We grew up Catholic, but there was a lot of devotion in terms of loving Our Lady, understanding what the Eucharist is. But there wasn't as much intellectual formation, just because that wasn't a skill set my parents had. And so I remember in 9th grade, I was thinking about becoming Baptist, because all my friends are Baptist. And I wanted a relationship with Christ, but I didn't have one, and I didn't have one. And it wasn't cool to be Catholic, still isn't. But I had a friend who just told me, like, Google it, like, where does the Catholic Church come from? And when I just discovered the founder, the only religion that has the ability to claim historically that Christ is the founder is the Catholic faith, possibly the Orthodox. And that was I was on fire for the faith. So my first whiff was out of excitement, maybe I should become a priest. But that's not the reason to become a priest, and so I never pursued it. I went to the University of Notre Dame, and I was getting ready for a marketing career, and I got involved with the pro-life group there. I love playing squash. I discovered the sport at Notre Dame. Fun fact, I got to represent, it was just a club team, but I got to represent Notre Dame at one of these away tournaments. You had to get in the top 10 of the bracket, and then you could go to Purdue. Well, that was the next tournament. So I got my rear end handed to me at that tournament, but it was just so much fun. So squash is my favorite sport. I did karate growing up, and I played the violin. I've been playing now for 23 years, and I love it.
My son wants to play the violin. That looks hard.
Tell him, though, that you're going to hate it for at least 3 years. And if you can get past the hurdles of just learning the technique, then you realize that you can make a sound that expresses an emotion that you feel, and you're like, whoa. It's not just pressing a button, it's not just dragging the bow across the string, but you have so much expression that you can put into a violin. My favorite Bible verse is from the Gospel of Luke, where the repentant thief says, Jesus, remember me. And the reason is, he knew out of justice that he had been condemned. And he even said it. But out of love, all he wanted was that God remember him. And I thought, there's such humility there. I recognize I can't go to heaven. I recognize that he must be God, and I just want him not to forget me. And of course, our Lord responds as he does. He sees true love, he sees contrition, and he gives as he does. And that encapsulates so much of Jesus' ministry. Because he didn't say, your life of thievery, it's okay. He never said that. But what was most important to our Lord was that relationship. I'm most excited to be in a stable parish assignment, to get to know the community. All of our assignments as seminarians were short, except for the pastoral year, which was a full year, which I really loved. They were all like 2-3 months here and there. So I can't wait for that community aspect. And the other is hearing confessions. And because I think Pope Francis's book, The Name of God is Mercy, I think it's a great illustration of the type of priest I want to be. The same themes as we shared earlier with the Gospel of Luke. He doesn't say the sin is okay, because it's not. But God's first attribute is mercy. And that's where we encounter the mercy so clearly, sacramentally, is in confession. Let's see, favorite dad joke. What do you call a lazy kangaroo baby? A pouch potato. It's terrible. All my friends, I've got 3 jokes, and those are the 3 I cycle through. They all hate these jokes. First is, a good father is always pleased but never satisfied. And I love that because that's how the Father loves us. Always pleased. We, just by existing, even if we're living a sinful life, just by existing we are good. He created us and called us good. By existing, he is pleased. But like a good dad, he's never satisfied. He's always going to say, well, what's the next step? And I think those two have to go together, because if you just have one, you become the Wall Street Journal's tiger mom, where the kid is never good enough, and that leads to problems. If you're just the other, then you get a child who's soft, who can't take on the world because they can't suffer. If you have both, that's what a good dad gives. A good mom does that too. And typically it's the dad who's a disciplinarian and who's like, son, what you did, you don't speak to your mother that way. And I love that. Like a good father, always pleased, never satisfied.